He was a fine actor, and I liked him very much, but I can't remember that we ever had dinner together or saw each other privately or went to parties together.
Ingrid Bergman was seen as the picture of elegance and grace, a Hollywood icon with a flawless image. But beneath the surface of her stardom was a woman full of passion, contradictions, and bold confessions. In her memoir, Bergman didn't hold back, opening up about her lovers, her regrets, and the scandal that rocked her career. And yes, she even made one jaw-dropping remark that still has readers raising their eyebrows. He was massive. Was she being cheeky? Brutally honest? What else did she reveal? Join us to find out just how unfiltered the real Ingrid Bergman truly was. Ingrid Bergman in her own words. Ingrid Bergman was not just a screen legend, she was a woman who lived life intensely and boldly, and who would not apologize about the complexity of her life. Later in life, she threw a rare light on that life in her autobiography, My Story, written with the journalist Alan Burgess and published in 1980. The book was not merely a record of her career. It was a very personal statement, candid, courageous, and more revealing than one might have expected. Bergman gave the world something it never expected of a star of her caliber: honesty in the pages of My Story. She was unrepentant when it came to the most scandalous pages of her life, such as the notorious love affair with the Italian director Roberto Rossellini, which shocked America in the 50s. She admitted to the pain, the judgment in the media, and the burden it placed on her family. But she also explained her choices with a kind of emotional clarity, describing how she followed her heart, even when it led her down paths many couldn't understand. What made the memoir especially intimate were her reflections on love and desire. Bergman did not present herself as a flawless icon. She talked about her marriages, her heartbreaks, and her lovers with rare openness for someone of her stature and for the time in which the book was released. One line from the book famously raised eyebrows and sparked curiosity. She described one of her lovers as massive, a remark that hinted at a physicality and passion she didn't typically share in public interviews. It was not much of a reference, but it was intentional, as much as it was necessary to show her without taking away her mystery. That fact, although cheeky, was not added to be shocking. It was a part of a bigger truth that she wished to tell, that her life, despite all her fame and glamour, was full of deep, complicated, human desire. Bergman did not pose as an ideal person. She wrote of her desire to be connected, her difficulties with motherhood, and the personal prizes she paid in her ambition. She experienced shame and victory, bewilderment and understanding. My Story is not another Hollywood memoir. It's a document of a woman who dared to live outside the boundaries set for her, on screen and off. Whether she was writing about a romantic relationship, a film set, or a moment of private regret, Ingrid's voice remained thoughtful, unpretentious, and real. At the time of the publication of the memoir, Bergman had already established her place in history as a great actress in the cinema. However, My Story gave the reader an opportunity to view her not as a figure, but as a woman, daring, inquisitive, fervent, and sometimes painfully sincere. When she revealed her truth, she was not merely narrating the story of a star. She showed the world that on top of every icon there is a human being full of contradictions and light. But with a life so raw and scandalous behind the scenes, how did the world still crown her a legend on screen? A timeless star who shone in every language and stage. Ingrid Bergman, who was born on August 29, 1915, and died on the same date in 1982, is still one of the most recognizable actresses that the world has ever seen. She was born in Sweden and had a career that lasted over 50 years, and it left a mark not only in Hollywood, but also in the world's cinema. Over the course of her lifetime, she was celebrated with numerous prestigious awards. Among these were 3 Academy Awards, making her one of only 4 women in history to achieve that many. Only Katharine Hepburn managed to win more, with 4 wins. Bergman's talent also brought her 2 Primetime Emmy Awards, a Tony Award for her work on stage, 4 Golden Globes, a BAFTA, and a Volpe Cup from the Venice Film Festival. In 1999, the American Film Institute honored her legacy by naming her the 4th greatest female star of what is often referred to as classic Hollywood cinema. Bergman, a Swedish and German actress, made her European film debut in 1939 with Intermezzo. Her natural, glowing beauty and familiar appearance made her stand out. She became a household name in 1942 with Casablanca, playing Ilse Lund, solidifying her place in cinema history. In the 1940s, Bergman starred in several hit dramas, earning nominations for the Academy Award for Best Actress. She also teamed up with Alfred Hitchcock on 3 thrillers, showcasing her range and magnetic screen presence. However, her journey wasn't without controversy. After a widely publicized personal scandal, she stepped away from the Hollywood spotlight for a time, but she returned in style, winning an award proving that her talent hadn't faded. Almost 2 decades later, she earned her 3rd Oscar for Murder on the Orient Express in 1974, this time in a supporting role. She also did lighter roles in the years in movies such as Indiscreet in 1958, Cactus Flower in 1969, and the highly emotional Autumn Sonata in 1978, and her role in the latter was her 6th nomination as Best Actress. Ingrid Bergman was a famous actress who received a Tony Award in 1947, playing Joan of Lorraine. She also received 2 Primetime Emmy Awards for her work in The Turn of the Screw and A Woman Called Golda. The fact that Bergman was able to relate to the audiences in various languages such as Swedish, English, German, Italian, and French gave her performances some authenticity. But was this timeless star always destined for greatness, or shaped by early heartbreak? Early life and rise to acting. Ingrid Bergman's life began in a home shaped by 2 different cultures. Her father, Justus Samuel Bergman, was Swedish, and her mother, Frida Henrietta Augusta Louise Bergman, was German, originally from Kiel. Her parents had tied the knot years earlier, on the 13th of June, 1907, in Hamburg, Germany. It's said that her father named her after Princess Ingrid of Sweden, adding a royal flair to her beginning. Although Sweden was home, Ingrid didn't grow up completely rooted in just one country. Each summer, she used to go to Germany, where she would immerse in German language and culture. These visits made her fluent in German, which was to be of great benefit in her acting career later on in her international career. Ingrid was an only child, technically, but not firstborn. Before she came along, her parents had lost 2 children in infancy, so when she arrived, she became the sole focus of her family's hopes and dreams, especially her father's. Sadly, her childhood was marked by early loss. When she was just 2.5 years old, her mother passed away. She was too young to comprehend grief, and she sought solace in the creation of the imaginary companions, which showed not only a vivid imagination, but also a desire to be connected. Her father, Justus, was a photographer, and he grew to be passionate about life behind a lens. He especially enjoyed photographing Ingrid. She later joked that she was likely the most photographed child in all of Scandinavia. She didn't just sit still for photos, she played, danced, dressed up, and acted in front of the camera. These early playful moments in front of her father's lens gave her a taste of performance and a chance to escape into characters. Justus was very optimistic about Ingrid. He also wanted her to sing in opera, thus he took her to voice lessons where she spent 3 years. He also took her to the Palmgrenska Samskolan, a well-known school for girls in Stockholm. Although the school was a prestigious one, Ingrid was not a particularly outstanding student in that school. She was not a popular student either. But something larger was developing in her unobtrusively, the seed of imagination and narration. The world of Ingrid changed once again in 1929 as her father passed away due to stomach cancer. She was only 14. She spent the rest of her life with the pain of losing her parents at such a tender age. Later in life, she described it as carrying a constant ache that she hadn't even fully understood at the time. After her father's death, Ingrid was sent to live with her aunt Ellen, but heartbreak struck once more. Ellen passed away only 6 months later from heart disease. The young girl then moved in with her paternal uncle, Otto, and his wife, Hulda. They had 5 children of their own, so it was a bustling household. Ingrid also spent time visiting her maternal aunt, Elsa Adler, who she lovingly called Mutti, the German word for mom. These changing homes shaped her deeply and may have made her early desire to act even stronger, perhaps because performing gave her a way to feel seen and to make sense of her inner world. Ingrid, a Swedish actress, had a long-held dream of becoming an actress. After receiving a scholarship to the Royal Dramatic Training Academy, she broke the rules and left the academy to pursue film, becoming one of the most respected actresses in cinema history. But was her biggest fall also the beginning of her greatest comeback? The chapter that changed Ingrid Bergman's life. Ingrid Bergman had a moment when she was at the peak of her popularity, and she made a very brave step that would alter her career and her life in general. She abandoned the glamour of Hollywood and went to Italy to work with a filmmaker whom she greatly admired, Roberto Rossellini. Their working relationship became personal on the set of the 1950 film Stromboli. Her fascination with Rossellini quickly turned into a full-blown love affair. However, one significant hitch was that Bergman was still married to Dr. Petter Lindström, the father of her daughter, Pia. The relationship between Bergman and Rossellini didn't just stay behind the camera. It became headline news when Bergman became pregnant with Rossellini's child. What followed was a storm of public backlash, especially in the United States, where the news of her affair shocked audiences who had come to see her as the embodiment of grace and moral purity. The scandal spiraled quickly. She lost custody of Pia, the daughter she shared with Lindström. But what began as tabloid drama quickly escalated into something even more intense, an all-out cultural and political firestorm. The public wasn't just talking about her divorce or the fact that she remarried so soon after separating from her husband. In fact, things took a dark and deeply personal turn. Religious organizations condemned her, accusing her of setting a dangerous example for young women. They argued that her actions seemed to glamorize adultery and called her unfit to be a public figure. Even politicians got involved. Senator Edwin C. Johnson of Colorado went so far as to denounce her in Congress. He painted Rossellini as an immoral man and went as far as accusing him of being a drug user and a former Nazi sympathizer. His harshest words were directed at Bergman herself. He thundered that from the wreckage of her disgrace, a better Hollywood would rise. His public shaming of her was one of the most extreme examples of how personal choices, especially for women in the spotlight, were held to punishingly high standards. Her image was ruined, and Bergman had a hard decision to make: to leave America. She returned to Europe, where she expected to live a quieter life and start afresh. However, during the attempts to rebuild herself privately, the scars of the scandal touched a lot of spheres of her life, and her relations with children were the primary ones. She could not shake off the weight of the judgment of the people. In 1956, Ingrid Bergman, who had been a disgrace, came back to American cinema in Anastasia, where she won her second Academy Award. Her performance was a redemption to the world, and she was back in the admiration of the world. In 1972, the U.S. Senate made an official apology citing the cruel treatment she received. The documentary Ingrid Bergman, in her own words directed by filmmaker Stig Bjorkman, examines her life based on her diaries, letters, and rare home videos, and it shows her spirit as an adventurous, thoughtful, and passionate woman. But what happens when love, fame, and ambition collide, and someone refuses to let go? Love, loss, and a life in between. Ingrid Bergman was just 21 years old when she married Swedish dentist Petter Aron Lindström on July 10, 1937, in the quiet town of Stordø. He would later become a neurosurgeon, while Ingrid's acting career was just beginning to bloom. The couple had one daughter together, Fridel Pia Lindström. When Ingrid returned to the United States in 1940, she briefly turned to the Broadway stage before resuming her film career in Hollywood. A year later, Lindström and their daughter joined her in America. He settled in Rochester, New York, to study medicine and surgery at the University of Rochester. Though her work often kept her away, Ingrid made time to visit their modest stucco house in New York, staying anywhere from a few days to a few months between film projects. A Life magazine article once described Lindström as the clear head of the household, something Ingrid at the time seemed to accept without resistance. He made it clear that he didn't want his identity wrapped up in Hollywood glitz and preferred that she separate her work life from home. Later, Lindström moved to San Francisco to complete his medical internship, and their time together became even more limited. He wasn't dazzled by Ingrid's fame. According to biographer Donald Spoto, he often saw her as too focused on her own popularity and concerned with appearances. He also managed her money and career decisions with great caution, earning a reputation for being tight with finances. On August 27, 1945, just 2 days before Ingrid's 30th birthday, the couple applied for U.S. citizenship. Their marriage unraveled after Ingrid's passionate affair with Italian director Roberto Rossellini during the filming of Stromboli in 1950. When the affair made headlines, she pleaded with Lindström for a divorce and access to their daughter. But he refused. Years later, when asked why he stayed despite knowing about her infidelity, Lindström admitted bluntly that he tolerated it because of her income. That same month, Stromboli hit theaters. Ingrid gave birth to her son with Rossellini, Renato Roberto Ronaldo Giusto Giuseppe, affectionately known as Robin. Just a week after giving birth, she divorced Lindström in a Mexican court and married Rossellini by proxy on May 24, 1950. In June 1952, she gave birth to twin daughters, Isotta Ingrid and Isabella Rossellini. Isabella would go on to become a well-known actress and model, while Isotta became a professor of Italian literature. Despite her new family, it wasn't until 1957 that Ingrid was finally reunited with Pia in Rome. But Lindström, by then her ex-husband, remained bitter about how things had ended. But could a woman so free in love ever find peace in the end? Life behind the scenes. The personal life of Ingrid Bergman in the 40s was as dense and intense as her movie characters. During the same decade, she had love affairs with some of her directors and co-stars. During the shooting of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, she had a short affair with Spencer Tracy. During For Whom the Bell Tolls, she had an affair with Gary Cooper, who later remarked that no one had loved him more than Bergman. But once filming ended, she wouldn't even return his calls. Director Victor Fleming also fell deeply for her while working on Joan of Arc, and according to film scholar Janine Basinger, he never fully recovered from his feelings. During her USO tours across Europe in 1945, Bergman had a short-lived romance with musician Larry Adler. Actor Anthony Quinn, in his autobiography, mentioned a sexual relationship with Bergman among his many affairs. Howard Hughes, infatuated with her, once called to say he had bought the RKO studio, supposedly as a gift for her. Two notable relationships emerged during her marriage to Petter Lindström. One was with the famed war photographer Robert Capa, She met him in Paris in 1945, and they reunited later in Berlin, where she admitted to falling in love with him and contemplating leaving her husband. Though Capa followed her back to Hollywood, he grew disillusioned with the superficial world of movie making. Another affair, kept private for decades, was with actor Gregory Peck during the filming of Spellbound. Years after Bergman's death, Peck confessed in an interview that their relationship had been real and deeply emotional, born out of the intensity of their time working together. Ingrid once referred to herself as tall, Swedish, and Lutheran. Her daughter, Isabella Rossellini, later said that her mother Ingrid demonstrated to the world that women can make their own decisions, even when society tends to keep them down. Did her confession change how the world saw her? Do you think she might have a bit of regret for the way she lived her life? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it,